think I'm done. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Now we're live officially on YouTube. And can you hear me, Jesse?
I can hear you very well. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, I can see us on YouTube. Oh no, hold on. I'm going to turn the sound off there. All right. Now we're good. All right. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good night, good morning. I don't know. Whoever is watching us from, where are you watching us from? I am Bella Babloumian, and this is the third episode of Real Health. These are the episodes that I've launched early in March with the intention of bringing real people, real stories, and real inspiration to live our lives fully, to explore what health really means, and to expand this concept that health is not just about the physical aspects of our well-being, but about our relationships, about our mental health, about sexuality, and so many different topics that we've been talking about on the last episodes, and then in the upcoming future episodes. And today, I am super excited for various reasons, for personal, professional reasons, to be here with Jesse Miller. I'll introduce him in a second. We're going to be talking about something that I'm extremely passionate about. And it's interesting because relationships has not really been a topic that I discussed too much on Embody. Embody Wellness has been mostly about discovering yourself through well-being and through like these different individual practices, I guess. But the more I've done my work and the more I've talked to real people about health and well-being, the more I see how relationships are an integral part of both discovering who we are, so self-discovery, of attuning ourselves to our emotional intelligence and discovering what mental health is really about. And that's why I'm so excited to have Jesse here to tell us more about this connection. I think it's actually going to be both, right? So how do we look at relationships through the lens of mental health, and how do we look at mental health through the lens of relationships, right? It's kind of I think both are going to be very true. But before we delve into this topic, which as you can see, I'm extremely passionate about and excited about, I want to introduce Jesse. I love his biography because he's such a versatile person. So I want to share a little bit. Jesse Miller is a relationship coach, and he specializes in helping people, specifically, from what I understand, you can tell us more, but in broken relationships, right? And really delving into relationships that kind of have given up on themselves, to discover how they can be revived, right? And actually, I really believe that these crises are an opportunity for growth. You can tell us more about your experience with that. Jesse has helped a lot of people manifest and bring back this special person that they really are, align themselves with who they are, so they can be express who they truly are in a relationship, and thus heal the relationships. And what I know, where I met Jesse, he's also an amazing entrepreneur, gardener, and he created his own brand of kombucha. This is how we met in Brazil many years ago. And I loved your kombuchas. I'm kind of sad that you're not doing that anymore, but I know it's a different phase for you now.
There are conversations happening.
Yes, definitely. So without much ado, I want to invite you to share a little bit more about your work and why. I think my first question to you is why did you decide to delve into this area of relationships, and why are you so passionate about them? And just a little bit of an intro about you.
Thank you. As she said, I'm Jesse Miller, and so I am a relationship coach. Yes, I specialize in broken relationships, but first, I really got into relationships because I really am passionate about the understanding the laws of the universe and learning how to manifest the life that we want. And the more I dive into manifestation, the more I realize everything is about relationships. Your relationship to money, your relationship to your body, your relationship to the economy, your relationship with your partner, yes, but everything is relational. And it just, for me, it's a really fun subject to work on with clients, because when you start working with people, there's usually so much at stake in the love relationship. And from that really magnified focus, you can see where relationships that they have with all kinds of things in the world are keeping them from the happiness that they could be living. And basically, to summarize that, I really have come to see that relationships are nothing more than a mirror reflection of the relationship you have inside yourself. So when I hear people coming to me with issues with their partners and things that they want to see different in their partners, it's so often something that they're denying themselves. I'm not finding intimacy with my partner. They're shutting off to me. They don't make time for me. They're cold. And then when you ask them about their personal life, their morning routine, when you ask them about what kind of practices they have to align with themselves, often that's where the root of the problem is. And that's why I actually call my coaching program Align Coaching. My philosophy is align with yourself, get to the root of that relationship, and figure out how to align with your higher self, with your best self, with your inner being, with this version of you that we all have inside of us, who doesn't doubt, doesn't have fear, knows everything is going to be okay, knows that well-being is the order of the day. There is this, religions call it soul. There is this part of us that is very much a part of us, and it's the bigger part of us. And when we're disconnected to it, when we pinch ourselves off, we can't experience that same flow, that same intimacy, that same integration in a relationship outside of us. So in essence, fix that core relationship. And I always find that the romantic relationship takes care of itself. And it always catches up to speed like a mirror reflection of what's going on inside. It's amazing. It's magical. It's something that happens fast when you're really able to my favorite thing to say early when working on with a client is, let's let your partner off the hook. Let's set them aside. Because I just find that in our relationships, we use our partner as an excuse to be unhappy. We explain our unhappiness or our confusion, our lack of anything, as because of them. And in that moment, in our energy body, we're saying, I need you to be different so I can feel better. And that's just out of control. And that never, ever, ever works. And so when you can change the way you see things in the world, the things you see in the world begin to change. And it's really an amazing journey to go on with my clients. And the other thing I love to do is to help them realize that this thorn in their side, this frustrated relationship that seems like it's broken. To clarify, mostly the clients that are coming to work with me are people who are in relationships that are failing, you might say. They're feeling like they're failing, but it's the person that wants to make the relationship work that comes to me. And it's often when their partner doesn't want to. And that's so fun to me, because the beauty of this work is it just takes one person to align. This is a law of attraction world.
Absolutely.
It's a law of attraction world. And when one person can align to the better version of themselves, when you're the best version of yourself, you're telling a great story about yourself, but who you are in the world, who you are in your work, who you are in your relationship, how you feel inside of that. You have this, you can develop this clean dialogue in your mind about how you see yourself. And when you do that, you raise your vibration. When you raise your vibration, those around you have an opportunity to be called to that higher vibration. And it always, anyone that does this work, that really wants to go inward and know themselves, anyone that's willing to take on what I call 100% self-responsibility, which is come and work with me, sure. But after the first conversation, we're not going to do any more talking about what your partner did that made you feel this way, or what your partner needs to change so you can feel better, because that's powerless. And so it's always about raise your vibration, be the version of you that has the relationship already that you want to, that you wish you could have. And your partner, if they have the seeds in them of that high vibrational alignment and beautiful, if they have that beautiful love story inside of them, there's an opportunity for them to raise up to your vibration, and you will blow your mind at how effortlessly, without heavy, serious conversations, without explaining to your partner what you're doing, you become a magnetic force to pull them to a new experience. But the
Yeah,
flip side, yeah.
no, I was just gonna to add to that. I really love what you said about how magical that is actually, because it's one of the like transformations in my life that I remember most is when I watched this episode. I think it was on the Ho'oponopono philosophy of
Yeah.
from the Hawaiian beautiful wisdom that they bring to us. That said, one phrase really stuck with me, which is there is no other, right? So everyone is a reflection of who we are. And at first you listen to that and you're like, whatever that means, right? It's like it's a very profound statement. But then somehow that phrase started coming to me like from different places and different books and things like that. And then when you start living that in that place, and everything that you see in the other reflected back to you as an opportunity to say, oh, why did that trigger me? Or, oh, why did that feel so exciting? Or why, when you start looking at what it shows about myself and how I can improve, it really is a magical way to transform your relationships and yourself too, right? So it's like it's a two-way road. Like you're working on yourself and you're transforming your relationships at the same time. So I really love
Yeah.
that
Well,
intro.
when you say this thing, it's very interesting. When you say this piece about the words that you heard that didn't quite jive at first, like everything's a reflection of you and there is no other, whatever. That kind of thought, what I love is that words don't teach, only life experience teaches. And that's been my journey, that experience of hearing wonderful teachers like that say amazing thoughts, like you said. And at first it doesn't quite jive with you. And maybe even today, people listening, some of the things we're going to talk about are perspectives, are a new concept or a new way of looking at it. And you can't quite put it on, like, to really take on that view. But what I love is words don't teach, only life experience does. And I remember years ago, I was in a yoga class and I had this wonderful teacher on Martha's Vineyard, and she read sort of a passage at the end of each class. And in one of her passages at the end, as we laid in Shavasana, she said, you've heard it said that you have thought that the world is something that you attract. You've heard it said that you attract experiences from outside of you. But I, your teacher, want you to understand that actually those experiences are coming first from inside of you and then presenting themselves. And I went to my teacher after that class and I said, I know what you're saying is true, but I don't know it. I'm so excited for a day when I will know that, but I don't. And it was years later that all of a sudden it clicked and I realized I totally understand. We create our reality. And we create our reality because our thoughts and our feelings create our state of being. They create our point of vibration, call it your mood, but your thoughts and your emotions create what you're able to experience in the outside world. And
can we pause there and talk, like delve into that topic? Actually, how do your thoughts and feelings create our reality? Can you explain kind of the mechanism behind this and how you've seen this manifested in your life, or how it's come up for your clients? How is it that dynamic works?
Yeah. Well, what you think about, people always want to have someone help them to manifest their dreams or manifest the things that they want. And one of the things I always say early on is this universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you who you are being. And so when you want something so bad, but you're convinced that you can't have it, there's an energy block in that, right? And most people have these long sentences they say about the things that they want. I want to have a better body, but it's just so hard. I want to have a better body, but no one in my family does. I want to have a better body, but my husband doesn't eat very well and it's so hard. They always follow up their sentences with an explanation. And it's like, you just put energy towards what you want and immediately canceled it out with energy of, I can't. And I have just come to see if I can give the esoteric perspective that sums up how I understand manifestation happening is this physical world is such an incredible platform to become who we are, because basically we have two ways to know how we're thinking and feeling, or two ways to know what we're creating. The first way is how you feel. So vibrations begin and they're very soft. They're just in the beginning. When a vibration builds some momentum, you get a thought. That's vibration moving, gaining momentum, right? So now you have a thought. If you hold that thought long enough, you have an emotional response to it. So the emotional experience of a thought is just a vibration that's moved along and been held and gained more momentum. If we could just stop there, if we as manifestors could just focus on the emotional manifestation, if our only goal would be to tune in our thoughts, to not be sloppy with our thoughts, but choose thoughts that create good emotions, we would so be on our way to every good thing that we want. Because hold an emotional state long enough and it begins to gain momentum. And now it's attracting experiences, conversations, encounters, rubbing shoulders with people, good timing. And that's the physical. And so what I feel is beautiful and brilliant about this world is that to become who you are, if you will listen to the manifestation of your emotions, you can catch it early on. You can notice, ooh, I don't feel good about this. I'm having a negative response to this. I'm going to go back to the thought and see if I can think better. Because basically your emotions are a response to the vibration of the thought you're thinking in this moment and your higher self, your inner being's knowledge about that very same subject. So if you can catch yourself in a negative emotion, you can say, oh, no big deal. It must mean there's a part of me that knows something better, knows something truer, knows something more beautiful. And if you can change the thought there, you change the emotional response, you go up the vibrational scale, and now things in your life begin to reflect that inner state of being that you have. So I bring it around to just say, I love this world because you can either catch your emotions and clean up your thoughts before they get out of hand, or no big deal, if you sit in a really cantankerous mood or an unhappy place or a victim mindset, sit there long enough, no problem, but the world, it will build momentum and the world will begin showing you evidence of the vibration that you're holding. And now it's spilling your coffee on yourself, stubbing your toe, someone rear ends you on the way to work. You hit all the red lights, all these experiences that then you say, I was frustrated, but now I'm really frustrated. Right. And that's just law of attraction is momentum. It's building more and more evidence of the posture that you're holding inward. And that's why I think this world teaches you.
So how do you distinguish, Jesse? Then I have this, so for example, you're saying that, how do we distinguish? Because there's also, you could take it to an extreme where positivity becomes toxic, right? There's the whole concept of toxic positivity. How do you not, avoid dealing with certain issues that are real and very much, bad things do happen in life, right? Like, how do we deal with these things and really process them appropriately without running away from our problems by still staying positive? Because I know it's possible, but I would love your.
Well, this is why I always say, as I said,
and this is obviously like very present in relationship. That's why I'm bringing this up, because that's where it comes up most, right? And with intimate relationships.
Yeah, I always talk about alignment first and then. So for example, let's say you need to have an important conversation with your partner. There's something that's not working in the relationship. You definitely have an action journey to take to have that conversation, but you have a vibrational decision first about what kind of posture am I going to be in before I initiate that conversation. So if you are going to talk to your partner about something that's triggering you or something that's an issue while you're in the middle of being triggered, while you're just vibrating insecurity, while you're feeling dejected and rejected and despondent, if you go to that action journey to have that conversation with your partner so that you can fix how you feel, even if you're having the right subject in your conversation, even if you have the right sentences, I promise it won't be the right time. Your partner won't be able to hear you. They'll be triggered by other things, or they'll be stressed about something else. They won't be present. That conversation will only create more of the rejection that you were experiencing. So
and confirm the negativity that you went in, right?
So if you're feeling rejected, and from that position of rejection, you try to do something outside of you to resolve the feeling of rejection, it's never going to work. Even the right action will just create more feelings of rejection because it's a vibrational story underneath. So I just always say alignment and then. So what I say to myself,
how do you shift those states then? Like if you are in this specifically, like like you're feeling you're preparing for that conversation and you are feeling rejected, let's say, like how do you shift that mindset or vibration before you go into the conversation? What are some of the techniques?
And it's training yourself to be so committed to doing things from a settled, peaceful, satisfied position inside of you, so that you can actually calmly create what you want and not just repeat patterns. And it seems really hard at first, but when you do it, you get so picky and you just say, I'm not going to have knee-jerk responses anymore. And basically, it's a question of asking yourself, what receptive mode am I in? My partner just triggered me and it hurt me. I have this impulse that I want to respond and I want to demand their attention and demand their behavior change.
Right.
But if that's the impulse, I have to admit, the impulse is just momentum built from a vibration I held. And so the impulse is coming from rejection. Energetic law says, whatever you do from a vibrational position, it will just create more of the same.
Right.
So what you say to yourself and what I teach my clients to say to themselves is sentences like, I don't have to resolve anything this red hot minute. I can take a moment to myself and count to 5, or take a deep breath, or talk about this tomorrow. Or I can say to myself, we are going to have this conversation, but I'm excited for a better time. This doesn't feel like the right timing. I'm triggered. It's not going to, we're never going to get to the bottom of this, because there is no bottom. There's no bottom. There's no bottom of anything. There's just stepping away from things that don't feel good, letting the vibration lose momentum and deactivate. But there's no law of attraction. If this is, and I very much come from a law of attraction perspective in all my work. It's in all of the modalities and perspectives and principles that I've seen. It is the most helpful, most clear, most across the board applicable perspective and theory. And what it says is whatever you're going to add momentum to, whatever you're going to focus on is going to grow. So that means it's a yes universe. This is not a universe where you can say yes to this, but no to this. When you say yes to this, you focus on it and it begins moving closer to you. But when you say no, stay away from me, this thing I do not want, it also begins moving closer to you and comes as part of your experience, because it's activated inside of you. It's not your words, it's what you give attention to. So when I see a client saying to me, my wife left me and she's not responding to my messages, and I want to just call her and text her and demand that we have children together. Damn it. You know, there's that anger. The message, if people go that direction, and sometimes they do, against my advice, they reach out in anger or in dejection or rejection, as I said, and before you know it, there's restraining orders. Now they're not even allowed to reach out, but they slam the door in their own face by demanding that someone change. And when you instead just say, all right, it's 6 o'clock, 6:15 at night. I could do this tomorrow. I could give my partner the benefit of the doubt. I could calm down. I could get a good night's sleep. I could see how I feel in the morning, because nothing is that urgent. Nothing is that urgent.
Well, I think it's also the fact that, like, if you are experiencing strong emotions, then behind that or beneath that or underneath that, there's always something that you need to work on, right? Mm-hmm. So I've noticed that the stronger the emotion I feel towards my partner, or not even partner, anyone, right? Really, like if someone triggers me, they'll say something and it like really hurts or really aggravates me in some way, then I try to look at that and say like, wait, why is that bothering so much? And what does it say about me? What does it say about my worldview and how I can shift it to, you know, come from a different perspective, right? So aside from being in that, you know, taking a breath and, you know, just like, how can I look at myself and change myself? And what is this mirror trying to actually help me do? You know? Yeah.
So, well, I mean, I can think of a specific example with my current partner. Okay. And I remember in our first year of our relationship, there was something that he did that needed to be addressed. It was very hurtful and very outside of our agreement. And it was really difficult for me when I found out about it, and he didn't know I found out. And so I saw two things. One, there's the area that he can grow and decide to be more committed, more honest, more in integrity. But there's the other piece that he's triggering all this stuff from my past, and he's triggering all this stuff that is not his issue. There is this hair blowing back experience I could give him if I'm going to approach him right now when I'm an exposed nerve emotionally. And I just said to myself, I don't know when, but I just know not now is the time. And I had to have the discipline to be quiet and just go inward and deal with myself first. Right. And he had no idea anything was going on. So after a few days, when I finally brought up, hey, I came from such a peaceful place, and it was so much easier to understand him because I let go of, I already dealt with myself and thought, this isn't something he's doing to me. This is something he's figuring out about who he is. And what's the relationship I want to have? I want longevity. I want this to really have a beautiful story and to be a feel-good experience. So I want to give him the opportunity to even have stepped out of a boundary of mine and still have a good feeling conversation that brings us closer. And so when I brought this issue up to him, he said, you've been stewing in this for 3 days? That's not fair. Come on, we should be able to work on stuff. And I said, no, let me be clear. I was not stewing. I was getting my junk out of the way so that we can now talk about just what's going on, not what's gone on before you met me, you know?
No, absolutely. You know, it's so funny. I completely relate to that. You know, like, let's say like one recurrent theme in my relationship that keeps occurring is like this feeling of abandonment, right? That keeps coming up. And at first, you know, of course you're like, oh, because this, you're not giving me the time that I need, the quality time that I need, or you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And then eventually, like, I had to discover like where it all originated from. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's like a, you know, accumulation of things. But for me, it was a very specific moment where, let's say back in the Soviet times, like they thought it was the best thing to separate children from their mothers. And so the first 3 days of my life, I was completely separated from my mom. I didn't even like get a hug from her. So, you know, that's like the you know, for 3 days, it's like an eternity, right? For a newborn baby.
Cerebral. Oh my goodness.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know what they were thinking back in the day, but so lo and behold, I discovered, and I didn't know this, but when I asked my mom, she was like, yeah, you were there for 3 days and that was normal. And, you know, I was like, wait a minute. So this is why it comes up in such a visceral way for me, right? Yeah. And so, you know, in retrospect, obviously, like the relationships that I've had, that it was really hurtful to experience what I experienced. But in the end, it was able to bring me back to that painful moment and heal it, right? By myself through like rekindling this relationship with myself, having a conversation with my mom, and like, you know, just healing that part of me, so that obviously it's not an instant thing, but it's nowadays, if something like that happens, I don't interpret it as, oh, he's abandoning me. It comes off in a completely different way. It actually changes that whole meaning.
Yeah.
So right. And you share that in your, you know, that you work with our relationships as children. And how much you think, sometimes people are like, oh, is that like Freudian stuff, right? But I think there is a lot of validity to looking at our relationship with our mothers and fathers and, you know, the early stages, right? Yeah.
We definitely get to those places with my clients that I work with. I'm also very careful to not create a practice of seeing yourself as someone that needs to be healed. Like that's one thing that I notice when I go into the child wound with people and go back to their past and find some issues. I like to see that and bring some awareness to it, but also to work through it. Let's really sit here and work through it. Have we worked through it? Then let's move on. Let's not constantly come back to this as an excuse for why things are showing up a certain way later, because I think you can become a professional healer, someone who's never quite healed, but always on this path. And, but those experiences young are so formative. I always want to bring the conversation quickly to talking more about where we're going, not where we've been and what's been our hindrances that have blocked us up until this point.
I completely agree with that. I think like that's like traditional therapy and like psychotherapy specifically, right? Like with a focus on the Freudian approach that's very prominent in Brazil, for instance, right? That's where I got it. It's like, you know, you just keep going over and over the same trauma over and over again. Sometimes that doesn't help. Sometimes it actually gets you stuck in that mentality, right?
Right. Yeah, and then people feel like, oh, it's a little indulgent. I have a reason for why, as opposed to, this is the human experience is a lot of people that have disappointed you along the way. And it's it's not what happens to you only, it's how you choose to see it. And that's why I love psychological work. You know, you take someone who was like abused as a little child, and now they're 27 years old and they're having issues and they're remembering and they're really just sad and feeling broken. And one of the most amazing processes is when you can take that person and walk them through some visualizations and have them sit down on a sofa in their mind next to their 8-year-old child, their version of themselves when they were 8. And then you can say to them, of course you felt like you weren't worthy of love. Of course you felt like you weren't important. Of course you felt like just an object. You were 8. That makes sense that you concluded that. But at 27, I can see that the person that hurt you was hurt. And I can see that it's not okay what they did, but it didn't have the meaning over who you are that you had taken on at the time. And in that simple observation, sometimes people can really let go. But I like to really go there and really give some attention to that and really sit in that space. But then once healing happens, move on and don't keep activating it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But I love to go back in childhood. And it's so funny because some people get here really quick and some people, it takes them a long time. But to pick a memory, and I've done this for myself. So I have this memory when I was a little kid. I grew up in New Hampshire, and I remember it was a snowstorm. I was wearing a snowsuit. It was like before dinner. The days are dark early, and I was playing in the snow outside my house under a lilac bush, and it was covered in snow like a fort. And then I just curled up under the fort and I just sort of sat there and watched nightfall, and the snow was falling so heavy, and I just sat there. And I think it was one of my early meditation experiences. I just zoned out. I thought, how cool is it that the snow is so heavy and falling so fast, but you hear nothing? And I sit in this place and it gets dark enough that I can now look over and see this yellow light across the snow that's just the window of our kitchen, like this warm light. And as I looked over there, I remember feeling so provided for. Oh, I know in that warm house, my dad is stoking the fire, my mom is cooking dinner, and I'll have a bath. Like I just felt like everything's taken care of. I can just sit and be. And in that moment, my mom opens the door, Jesse, dinner. I felt love in that moment and like completion, that I go back to that memory. So you said earlier, what do you do when you're triggered and you want to have these conversations with your partner, but you want to change the vibration first? Literally, I pull that memory out of my back pocket and say, what did I feel like at 7 years old in that moment? And I can access it because I've practiced accessing that memory. Just like people access a memory of abuse in childhood and trigger themselves in a negative way, I trigger the memory of this wonderful state of being. And I think, wow, when I feel that 7-year-old version of Jesse, I know the universe has my back. I know that I'm provided for. I know everything's going to be okay. And it calms my heart. And your mood, your inner state of being is your vibration. Your emotions in the moment are evidence of where you're vibrating. So if you can get calm, if you can get bigger picture, then you're ready for the conversation.
No, absolutely. And I love how you bring the positive aspect of childhood, because we only talk about like the wounded child and and like, remothering your child, but sometimes they're actually great experience that we've had as children that can help us. And it's all about the storyline, right? It's the story that we tell ourselves. So we can always kind of go back and rewrite that story, which is what I love about, I studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, but there's so many other modalities that do that, right? And it's like, you just go back and you shift the story, and then all of a sudden your life becomes completely different. But I want to ask you shift a little bit and ask you shine light a little bit on mental health in general. Finally, after all these years, mental health has become kind of an important topic. Not that it never was, but it's now making headlines and people are realizing how important it is. Why do you think that mental health is in such a big crisis in the modern societies, and how does that have to do with relationships? Does it have to do with relationships, or does it have to do with this law of attraction, or what is your view of why it's in such a state? And then I guess the next question will be just like, how can we effectively start shifting that? And how can we as a society transform that? You know, aside from going to amazing coaches like yourself, you know, to transform.
I think people don't know why their mental life is so important. People put up with so much. Oh my goodness. I see people put up with feeling bad and having repeated negative thoughts for huge chunks of their day. And they think, well, as long as I'm working, as long as I'm paying the rent, right? As long as I'm doing things that other people are going to approve of, that's the priority. And there's not this actually, you know, in my work, I'm working with a client and his wife heard about the work we're doing and she said, this Jessie teaches selfishness. And I say, yes, I do. Because if you're not selfish enough to prioritize how you feel, you're never going to gain control of your life. You're going to have knee-jerk responses and you're not going to create anything from except a knee-jerk. You're going to create on default rather than creating with intention.
I'm so happy you brought that up. I just want to pause you there because it's like that word selfish is so, we create selfishness out of something that actually should be self-care. Like, yes. I run into the same problem. I mean, I mostly work with women and, you know, I've started working with relations, but I mostly work with individuals mostly. And it's incredible, you know, this happens for men and women, but I see it mostly in women, how neglected this sense of like taking care of myself and taking care of what feels good. And that's why I've invented the whole thing of pleasurable wellness, because people don't feel like they have the right to experience feeling well. And guess what? If you're not feeling well, how can you create good relationships? And how can you be a good mother? And how can you create better communities? Like it's the whole put on the mask on yourself first. It's that easy. It's not selfish. It's actually, I think it's the most selfless act to first take care of yourself and then look for others, because then this energy is there. You don't even have to feel like you're giving. It's just, you know,
it's the difference of giving from pouring from an empty well or flooding over because
exactly. There's so much of it that you don't even feel like you're losing anything, and you're not. Giving shouldn't be something that you feel
martyrdom, that kind of, you know, mothers do it, but spouses do it. A lot of my clients, sometimes the men I notice are these men that are so committed to taking care of the wife. So they're so adamant about cooking the dinner and setting the coffee machine up before they go to bed so their wife has the smoothest experience possible. And when their wife leaves them, they don't understand why, but now they're not making the coffee for themselves the night before. They're not eating well and preparing a nice meal. They're not making the bed and doing little things that just sort of like give you a advantage over the day. They don't do anything to feel good because they feel like it's just important that I take care of other people. And in that is a huge insecurity that I help people to see, because they're doing those things often to maintain the relationship or to keep the love that they don't feel they deserve otherwise. And what's not fair about that, as much as it sounds beautiful, these people say to me, I do so much for her, I did so much for her, quickly builds resentment. Now she's not even here and now they're pissed. And it's so interesting because I go, well, then that's not unconditional love. That is pouring from a dry well. It's hope, and you quietly have this story in your head. Why doesn't she do as much for me? Why aren't we having sex more? Why, you know, where's the intimacy? But then I'll do more. I'm a hero. I'm so proud of myself. And there's these stories that,
absolutely. And it's incredible, right? How we, in doing so, in kind of trying to please the other, we stop being ourselves, like, you know, more and more. And then eventually we end up in these relationships. This is what I see often, is that we end up in this place where we don't even know who we are anymore, because we're giving so much to the other thinking that we're doing well. And then they don't even want that anymore, because all of a sudden they really, like, we're not even being ourselves, and it's not authentic, and it's like forced, right? And so both sides start resenting each other. So yeah, I completely agree with you. The first step in building healthy relationships is looking at yourself and being a little selfish.
But I started getting this years ago, and I remember I had this wonder all of a sudden. I thought, you know what, if there's one thing I would say, I pretty much just put myself first. I really feel good a lot of the time. I think I'm nice to be around, but I really take care of me. I'm really focused on me, and I do want to focus on my partner, but maybe I don't get around to it as much as I should. Like I'm doing a lot of me care. And I had this sort of question. And that day, my partner came home and said, oh, you know what I just love about you? You take such good care of me. I've never been so well taken care of. It's like, you just always put me first. And I was like, that is not what I'm doing, but that is an amazing reflection of deal with yourself. And you just are instinctually supportive of your partner because you're supportive of yourself and your environment around you because you're not depleted.
Where I want to say the same thing, like right now, my biggest relationship is with my daughter, but it's when I try to do things for her, it never comes out right.
Oh,
when,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, barely ever, right? When I try to do things for her and it's like, no, it just feels this like, I feel the resentment and she doesn't enjoy it. But when I'm like, I wake up excited and I'm like, all right, we're going to do some dancing. And then it's just, she just like, or we're going to, go, like she feels.
Yeah.
I mean, we both get so excited about it. And then all of a sudden we're like recording this like videos and then we're doing karaoke. And it all comes from the place of like, we're having fun together. We're not trying to do something for one another. I'm not saying I never get into that space, but it's amazing to see that difference even in parenting, right? Which is seen as such a like, I have to give all of myself and sacrifice myself to be a good mother, which I really also teach my clients like not to go there, because yes, there are obviously some sacrifices, but if you're constantly in that space, you're going to hurt yourself and your child.
Yeah. Life is poetry. This is what's so interesting is, in my conversations with you and friends of mine like you, it's so helpful when you can catch the way you're talking and the story you're telling, and you think you're talking about a problem, but really within the language is often the key, the answer, the secret. And so I was talking to a client recently, and she was saying how her husband left her, and he left her for another woman. They have a daughter, and the daughter has certain special needs and needs a lot of attention. And so when I asked her why she thinks he left, he told her it's because he wasn't getting enough attention. She wasn't paying attention to him and taking care of him. But as I talked to her, she was like, I take care of him. I take care of my daughter. I never even do anything for myself. And so if you can pause and stop talking about the issue at hand that seems
red flag.
Yeah, but the real conversation is law of attraction abounds. Your relationship mirror reflects the relationship you have with yourself. And so what happens? She neglects herself. She doesn't invest in herself. She feels lonely because she's not investing in that relationship with her inner being. And what happens? She feels terrible, but she doesn't listen to her emotional guidance. That's okay. Don't listen, don't catch it, don't get back to self-care, no big deal. But the momentum will build and eventually it becomes physical manifestations. And now your wonderful partner, your soulmate, who's teaching you to mate with your soul, whether you like it or not, shows up and says, I feel lonely, rejected, and like you don't invest in me. But it's just coming to be a bigger manifestational message of what your heart's trying to teach you by how bad you feel. And so the secret is if you can get so in tune with yourself that you catch the negative emotions and say, thank you for this negative emotion, this teaching moment to show me I could think better. I could have a better feeling story. I could tell a better story of my life. I could believe in something that serves me better. And when you can do that, it doesn't have to build up to the manifestation of loss in the physical world. But that's where I always find my clients. They always want to come when it's gone so far. But that's not that far. If you can turn around, if you can let your husband in that scenario off the hook, and you can truly get back to you and do it for you, not to get the husband back, many times over, many times, that partner transforms, comes back and asks to be part again of the relationship because it is a mirror reflection. Do this work and the other relationship on autopilot takes care of itself.
Oh yeah, I've seen this happen over and over again. When you that needy feeling always actually completely does the opposite, right? It pushes the person away, and then when
She's needy for herself in that story.
Well,
herself was dying to connect, and she wasn't because she doesn't think that there's enough time. It's a lack mentality. It's whatever. But I've come to find there's too much to do to not do self-care. Like life is overwhelming if you're not replenishing and going back to that source. And that's the mental question you asked. Like,
I wanted to ask you too. Go
I
back to
don't
that.
think I don't think people value their inner world because no one else sees it. And they're so concerned with conditionalness. They're so concerned with what other people think. So they don't address this because there's no one else that's going to give them bad feedback or good feedback of how they're doing in their mind, they think. But to me, it's about living conditionally or not unconditionally. If you're living an unconditional life, then you're not going to look at outside circumstances and say that if that were different, I would feel different. You
Right.
decide how you're going to feel. You decide how you're going to perceive something, and you give the meaning to your life that you want it to have, and it catches up to that. So I just think that people are missing some really basic pieces of how happiness works, about how
Yeah.
creation works. And so they always create like, I'm going to move this from here to here, and now I feel accomplished. And it's the
It's,
hard way.
it's just, I mean, you can't blame people because how much time do we actually spend teaching our kids and, about mental health or well-being?
Yeah.
Zero, right? There's like zero, there's nothing. We don't learn of the importance of that. And yeah, like absolutely. Like I teach people about healthy eating, but it's the same concept, right? Every day you have to think about like, what is it that like the cleanses, right? How can I cleanse my mind from the negative thoughts, and not just the negative thoughts, all the bullshit that's around us, right? Like turn off that TV or turn off those like bad negative news and stop feeding yourself with all the negativity that's out there, because that's you are what you eat. I think is the same thing as you are what you think, right? So
Oh, well, there's your answer. That's exactly it. It's why is our culture suffering mentally from mental wellness? And it's because people just let themselves receive information without controlling it, without deciding what they want to hear. And there's so much stimulation, not just on our phones and on TV, but even just in your conversations at work. And just people have these conversations that are just, it's like you go to a dinner party and someone comes in late. Sorry, I'm so late. Someone pulled out in front of me. We almost had an accident. And before you know it, someone across the table says, oh, you should have heard about the accident I almost had last week. And then someone else said, I had a terrible accident. And everyone just gets on the subject like they're just suggested by each other. And no one's asking themselves, what's the uplifting conversation we could have? The subject doesn't need to be car accidents. The subject is happiness, excitement. The subject is passion. The subject is
it's almost taboo to talk about these things, right? At social gatherings. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine saying like, wow, like I don't necessarily want to go to a religious institution, but I miss having these uplifting conversations with each other about like how life is beautiful. And it's almost like you can't even have these conversations. You connect with each other by sharing the suffering and the terrible things that happen. And
Yeah.
oh, did you hear that horrible thing that happened over there? And oh my God, yes, I completely agree with you. So yeah, so it's the mental hygiene, right? Like, it's really
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really key. It's
But a
really
lot of
key.
times in that, we wait for other people to catch up to us, or we blame how difficult it is. And that's what I used to do. I used to go home to my family and we always would gossip. If I was home, not home for a long time, we get home and gossip. And I had this thought, oh, I want to have the higher vibration conversations, but it's just so hard. They all gossip. Da, da, da. When I finally let them off the hook and did the same stuff I'm speaking of about relationships, I said, you know what? I must somehow be a vibrational match to the gossip. And that's why I'm getting sucked in. I can't blame them for that. So what I did is I just decided in my heart, I'm excited next time I go home to look for how my family has evolved, look for what beautiful conversations they have, and not look for the gossip. And when I went home, I committed to just shutting my mouth and not saying anything that I didn't feel good about. And there were about a day and a half, there were huge moments of awkward silence where no one had anything to say. But you know what? Then the ball got rolling. And then we were talking about uplifting things. And then my grandmother came to me and said, Jesse, God's really been laying on my heart that in my prayer life that he just wants me to gossip less. Can you help me with that? And then my little brother
Wow.
came and said, hey, I have this commitment in my interpersonal self where I want to gossip less, but it's kind of hard. And I'm just asking people that I love to help me stay accountable to that. And I thought, wow, there's law of attraction. I never said this to anyone, but now my family is coming to this vibration that I want us to meet at. And before you know it, we were talking about people again, but only about amazing things. Do you know what she did? Did you hear how incredible he is and what a loving wife that woman is? And before you knew it, and now it's been years, we have the most beautiful, uplifting conversations. And if someone brings up a car accident, we'll start talking about something totally different. We won't get pulled into those subjects, you know?
Yeah. No, it's funny that you bring that up too, because my whole self-discovery journey actually started from seeing myself in my family gatherings and all the negativity, because I also come from a very the culture that went through all these genocides and like terrible wars, and it's really heavy. So I was like, oh my God, I really don't want to grow up like this. And actually that was the big shift for me. I was like, okay, I don't want to be like, because it's like my grandma is the worst, then my mom, and then like I've kind of like mimicked some of the things. And then as I started catching myself kind of being like them, and I was like, no, I'm not going down that route. So you're right, it's all about catching yourself before you have that negative thought. And it's not just running away from important topics, it's simply reframing them, right, and looking at them from a different perspective. But it's just also to like, it's so hard to do that with people that you have known for so long, right? Why is it so hard, do you think? Like, and how can we change that? Because that's where I still slip, right, in most of my clients.
What you and I keep talking about is the story you're telling. And so I spoke in the beginning about this version of you that you like how would you think today, and how would you feel if you were the woman that you wish you could be? Like, what would that be? It's a new version, right? We're always evolving to that. But we were our lower versions most of the time with the people we love. And so they remember us. And when they remember us, they hold us, and that limits their expectation of us. And so that's why this expression homesick, it's because going home makes you sick. Because you go home, and if you don't align and calibrate with who you are ahead of time, if you just jump into that old world without doing the mental work ahead of time and choosing how you want to think and choosing who you want to be, then you're going to get sucked into their expectations. And so when I went home, I noticed I was going home expecting gossipers and criticizing them in my mind for that. So I realized I needed to practice a higher opinion of them. And that's what I teach to people in relationships when they have a broken relationship and they're blaming and they're frustrated by the limits of their partner. I say, I don't know why you want to be married to this person or dating this person. You have such a bad opinion of them. Like, if you're not going to clean up your opinion first, they're going to only rise or fall to the expectations that you've created inside of you. You only get from people what you expect every time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so to me, it's about practicing a good opinion of yourself. So you see yourself as the version that you want to evolve to be, and you think like that man, and you walk like that man, and you make your decisions from that aligned place. But eventually it gets to be so fun to notice how you can improve your opinions of the people in your life. And when you do, they will knock your socks off with who they show up to be the next interaction. I mean, this is quick stuff. This is very quick stuff. I love when I get a client that's never really worked with the law of attraction. And I mean, the results are like 11 a.m. tomorrow morning when you shift something, it's not a long wait.
No, it's not. It really is magical, right? So since we're coming to the end of the hour, maybe you can walk us through kind of like a to-do list of like, where do we start? And I don't know, just some tips, right? That people can start using in their day-to-day, like how to observe their mental health, how to deal with you talked about the relationships, but maybe some, 2 or 3 tips that you're most.
Great. So actually one, all throughout our conversation today, we talk about the story you're telling. And for people that are following that, we're talking about the story you're telling in your mind, this inner chatter you have that is casting opinions on what's happening around you, calling it good, calling it bad, whatever. And I thought that this was really helpful. I have some clients that get this, and some clients it's a new concept for them. And so this client I'm working with right now, he couldn't understand what I meant about the story you tell, and he couldn't quite see. So he would basically, people tell you what's wrong in their relationship and they want you to help them fix it. And they are almost saying, I'm telling you what's happened. I'm giving you a historical account of my relationship, But what I'm saying is, no, you're not. You think you're telling a historical account. You're giving a prophetic account about what will be. There's no change, because even in your retelling the story, this is what you're practicing believing. And so it's all you can see. That was too hard for him to take on. And so I gave him this simple practice, and it served him very well. If you can't understand the connection you're telling to your own stories and the life you're experiencing, just start listening to people. And this is my tip for anyone that's new to this kind of perspective. Listen to the people around you that you know. Listen to how they talk about their lives. Listen to the way that they recant their story of what's happening at where they're at right now, and notice how it matches the life that they're experiencing. And I swear to you, they think that they are only repeating facts because that's what happened and it's out of their control. But the truth is, as they tell the story, so it shall be. And if you can watch that, you will start to teach yourself how manifestation works, because you will watch the people. And I don't mean from a judgmental place. I mean from a research.
Not at all. Mm-hmm.
Just the research place, you'll begin to see. And so I told my client this, and he came back and he said, Jesse, I get it. There's this guy and I work with him, and now he's quitting the job because he has a medical condition, and he's so irritable and so moody, and he had this thing happen with his health, and now he has to leave to a different job, and he was just complaining for the whole afternoon about how this job sucks, but how the next job's not going to be good enough. And when I asked him what his condition is, he said irritable bowel. And my client said, isn't it funny? Even his disease is irritable. Like there's poetry in life if you will listen to the words. It's hilarious. And so you manifest that unwellness in you when you're just so angry and so churning inside of you. And I just think it's amazing to start to listen to the words people say, and do this with successful people. Take someone you admire that has a beautiful relationship that you want to emulate. Listen, ask them about their partner. Mm-hmm. And they will give a beautiful story. And old you would say, of course they're telling a good story. Their partner is amazing. But the truth is their partner is amazing because they expect the best from their partner, and they've practiced high opinions of each other, and they don't even know where it ends and where it begins, but it's this rolling practice of good feeling responses from a good feeling story. And that's creation, and it's a dance, and it's so beautiful, and it's so easy.
That's so beautiful. That's such an easy, right? It's relatively easy to start doing this, and it helps you, it helps other, and I think ultimately that's the way for us to transform the way that we just relate to each other in general, right? Because I think the way that we relate to each other is so reactive, right? We just and we perpetuate the status quo and all the negativity, and all it takes is that split, right? That pause in between to say, okay, like what is it that I want to actually see in my life, and then you project that first out. I love that. It's a very uplifting view of relationships, mental health, and I love that suggestion. I will start practicing it this week and report back. Despite the fact that I work with this, all of us are guilty, of not always doing this, right? So all of us can improve, right? And even if you're new to this, like every incremental step in that direction makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's all about the story. If you can notice the stories you're telling, and you can just clean them up a little bit and tell it the way you want it to be, and tell it till you start to feel it inside, that's creation. And it just, every time it takes that little bit of faith, because you're not seeing the result right away, but you will see the results shortly thereafter. And our words aren't what's powerful, it's the intention and the meaning behind them. But when you align your words with your vision, with your feeling state, that's the recipe. That's the recipe for every good thing. But what a gift you bring to a relationship when you're able to hold that person in a high opinion, not because they've earned your trust, not because they've proven, there has to be this vulnerability in a relationship. There has to be this openness to any possibility. But what is the storyline that you're choosing to align with? And when you can just focus on right now, what are the thoughts I can practice that support the relationship that I want to have? And what's interesting is in my work, I always ask people, tell me about your relationship if it was the way you want. Tell me about your good feeling relationship. And usually they say, oh, I just love her because she's so nice and everyone likes her and she's always pays attention to me and she gives to charity. I go, no. Tell me about your relationship. Tell me about how do you feel in your relationship? oh, she makes me feel so good because she's just the most beautiful woman. And when we're together, people admire us. And I love what, and they always put the focus on the other. And it takes a little while to get yourself to say, let your partner off the hook, take them off the table. How do you feel inside your good feeling relationship? And when you can channel that and build that story, I love being in this relationship. It feels so found. It feels so comfortable. It feels fun. This relationship feels easy. It feels nice. It feels ordained. It feels like me coming home to me. It feels like homecoming. It feels like curiosity, and there's moments of passion, but it feels so easy, so soft, like I couldn't get it wrong. This is who I am. This relationship is who I want to be. When you can do that conversation, now it's so clean. And that's when you clean up the story, because it's not taking into account any facts. Who do you want to be? And that's what we create from when we create our great relationships.
That's beautiful. Yeah, because we focus so much on the external things, right? Even both in like in manifesting I hear this all the time, like, oh, describe what are the qualities of the person that you want to meet. But it's not about the qualities, it's about how you want to feel with this person, which is much more important, right? Because that creates the vibration. And afterwards too, like when you are with people already, how do you create these feelings inside? That people really underestimate the power of good thoughts and vibrations. And I'm glad that we have people like you, Jesse, who give us this wisdom, because it's one of those things that's like it's a magic wand that we have and we don't know how to use. Yeah. So it's so important for us to start learning this. I wish this was taught in schools, and that this was taught in wherever, right? For us to obtain this knowledge. It's so easy, and it works immediately, like you say, so you can really see the results quickly.
Well, it's the only thing that works.
And it only works that works, exactly.
The only thing that works with sustainable results, because you have to get yourself up to speed first with the relationship you want to have. And you get yourself up to speed with that ideal relationship by practicing the thoughts that match it, having emotional responses to those thoughts, and really embodying that experience before you have physical proof. If you need to go club your spouse over the head and drag them back to the cave so you can feel good, you're never going to feel good. You have to create and attract. It's the only way that and that's why it's a personal journey. If you can manifest your love relationship from this inner place, this quiet inner alignment, now you accidentally teach yourself your worth and value. And you go, oh, I actually deserve love. I actually get to have love. And that's what I try to help my clients see. They come to me wanting communication strategies so they can talk better and calmer to their partners so they can get them back. If they do a strategy to get their partner back, at best, they'll have their partner back, and they'll always wonder, are they just back because I glued us together? I did this, I have to maintain it. But when you can attract it, you go, when I'm out of my own way, this is what has to be. It couldn't be any other.
It's crazy. It's crazy how it works. Yeah, I remember one time I did this, it was like it's meditation series. And at the time I was with someone that we had kind of split, we weren't talking. And I literally just decided, okay, I'm going to do these 7 meditations every day. That's about attracting or clearing yourself to be aligned with your love, right? Like just being love instead of. And I swear, at the end of this meditation cycle on day 7, the person called me and he's like available to, and I didn't even get in touch with him. He just was available again, and it was all about meditation.
Yeah,
so I just shifted myself, and
it's the easy way. It's only hard to believe it'll work. But if you can this is what I always say to people, you don't have to get behind these perspectives 100% that we're talking about. If you can just softly be open to the possibility that it could be different than you have tried so far, that's enough. And the universe will rush in to fill that space, and you will begin gradually teaching yourself how this stuff works. You don't have to
master the whole thing, right? Like
because it feels very airy-fairy to many people in the beginning. But if you can just be open to and stop having conclusions already formed, you'll teach yourself. And it's a ride, it's a journey, it's so fun.
Yeah, Jesse, thank you so much. This is amazing. I really wish that we could have another hour to talk about this, but we already went over. And but I wanna leave your contact information after the video, but share with us, like, are you open to new clients? How are you doing your work? Just like in case people want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way? I'll
Sure.
leave the, the links in the video, but.
Sure, I'll be concluding with a couple clients soon, so I'll have some new openings coming up. And people can reach out to me on Instagram or on Facebook. It's Align Coach. Yeah, and I like to, every client's got a different story and a different thing they're trying to work through. So I like to just have a conversation at least first to really ask some questions and get to the bottom of what is it, where do you feel stuck and where do you want to go from here? So if anyone ever wants to have one of those conversations, it's actually really fun because sometimes people will come and they're working through something and I can even just help them in one call, just really shift some things and come up with a new way of seeing things and how to move forward. But for other people, they want to go into regular coaching and then that's when the real fun begins. So
yeah. Now I can speak for myself. I've never had a coaching session with you, but I've had like semi-coaching sessions with you where as a friend you've helped me, and just by a simple message and shifting a perspective of how to look at certain things, you've been able to completely transform my reality on how I'm living my relationship. So I really
thank you.
recommend Jesse very much for
well, and I conclude with relationships are supposed to be fun and they should be easy. And if they're not fun and easy and expansive, then no big deal, but something's out of alignment. So let's work together to figure out what's out of alignment. And at least 100% of the time, it's something inside of you and it's not in your partner. It's something in you that you're bringing out in your partner. So,
and even if it is, then by aligning yourself, they will shift.
Of course, but you can only, you're a match to this experience that you're having.
You have to
figure out why you're having an experience that you feel is not serving you. There's something to discover there, and that's intimacy. That's true intimacy. And then you give your partner the gift of becoming the best version of yourself. And when you're with someone and they say, "Oh, that Bella, she brings out the best in me," that is because you expect the best from that person. They're not surprising you with how wonderful they are. You're looking for it. And so I just want people to at least look for in their partners what could blow them away rather than look for what could disappoint.
That's a beautiful message to leave people with. So tonight, look at your partner and try to see something that you really love about them rather than something you hate about them. Let's all start there, right? Yeah. Jesse, thank you so much. This was
Bella,
a beautiful conversation. And for those of you that might have questions come up later, Jesse is available, I guess, for a conversation, and hopefully we'll have him with us again in the future. We have our episodes where is it? Are we on a first? Yes, first Wednesday, because I have something else at the last Wednesday as well, but first Wednesday of the month. Look forward to seeing you next time, and thank you again for watching. Bye, Jesse.